Hello, thanks for joining us on the news. I'm Ruth Aguela. My sign language interpreter is Taiwo Ozoma. Let's bring you the headlines. Germany seeks partnership with Nigeria's First Lady on protecting vulnerable women. Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs condemns developments in Republic of Niger, urges dialogue. And Director General World Trade Organization urges Nigerians in diaspora to strengthen systematic mechanisms to attract nation building. It is a fact that women and children are the most affected in conflict situations. This sad fact is providing a fresh impetus for the Republic of Germany and the Office of the First Lady of Nigeria to explore new collaboration that will provide wider protection for vulnerable women in Nigeria. State House correspondent NTAi reports that this was when a delegation from the German embassy paid a courtesy call on the First Lady Oluremi Tinubu in the State House.
Federal Republic of Germany is one of the 12 countries with feminist foreign policy, which defines its interaction with other states, prioritizing gender equality and human rights for women. And in Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu, whose track record in charity work and women empowerment is renowned, the Germans found a worthy ally for needed collaboration. While leading a delegation from the German embassy to the office of the First Lady, German ambassador to Nigeria, Annette Gunther, says the interventions of our country in the energy sector, promotion of security reforms, and stabilization efforts in the Northeast are mostly driven by the desire to protect women and children.
We have taken notice of the energy transition plan, which is very ambitious and which we welcome very much, to reach zero emissions by 2060. It's still a long way to go, but we want to be a strong partner on that way. We have opened a hydrogen office. It's called German-Nigerian Hydrogen Office.
Appreciating the Germans for past humanitarian assistance and interventions in Nigeria, the First Lady says her Renewed Hope initiative welcomes strategic support as she targets more women empowerment. She highlighted alternative school system and adult education for women alongside other interventions in key focal areas.
We, at least my office would love to assist, that whatever we can do to help those vulnerable groups that they've been displaced from their homes, we want to do that. So, and to hear that, you've been assisting us in some of the areas where we have conflict, I want to appreciate you and appreciate your country for that. Education is very key, because whatever it is, the government programs government have, if they are not educated, how would they know to be able to access all that is meant for them? So we have all this pocket of things that we believe that we can use to complement government and to support them from this office.
Appreciation of Nigeria's impressive democratic track record and a stout defense of democracy in Nigeria Republic as a leading member of ECOWAS bloc also came up during the visit. In the State House, NTAi, NTA News.
The Economic Community of West African States and the African Union should work towards diplomatic resolutions to the Niger crisis. Africa Security and Policy Analyst Abdullahi Boru Halaki says sanctions will only harm the situation. Let's hear more from Adebola Brookslyn Sunday.
A week ago, the regional bloc ECOWAS agreed to impose sanctions on Niger's military leaders involved in the recent coup, saying the military junta in Niger must relinquish power in a week and immediately release and reinstate the country's elected president, Mohamed Bazoum. Failure to do so, ECOWAS said it will take all necessary measures to restore constitutional order in Niger, including the use of force. Africa Security and Policy Analyst Abdullahi Boru Alake is urging diplomatic resolution to the crisis through joint efforts of ECOWAS and the African Union.
Sunday was the deadline of 1 week before the military intervention from the bloc. That did not happen. We are having an extraordinary summit on Thursday to determine any actions that will be taken. ECOWAS needs to open up the diplomatic route.
Hosted President Mohamed Bazoum, who said last week he is being held hostage, has been publicly silent since then. Adebola Brookslyn, NTA News.
In a related development, the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs says it is disturbed by the developments unfolding in the Republic of Niger, following the seizure of power by the military from a duly democratically elected leader, Mohamed Bazoum, through a coup d'etat. The council said while Nigeria spearheads the imposition of sanctions on Niger, it should be reminded of the thousands of Nigerian refugees to whom Niger provided succor and a safe abode for several years now. The act of good neighborliness, rare hospitality and kindness should be reciprocated. While it is understandable that the leadership of both ECOWAS and Nigeria must preserve and protect democracy by discouraging forceful takeover of power through military coup d'etat, the Supreme Council strongly implores the federal government of Nigeria and by extension the leadership of ECOWAS to continue to tread the path of dialogue rather than resorting to violence. The pandemic on the world economy would pay the very costly price, not the coup plotters. To other issues, the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, has urged the Nigerians and Diaspora Commission to strengthen systematic mechanisms to attract second and third generation Nigerians in the diaspora to contribute towards nation building. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala stated this during a presentation of her as the diaspora icon, a fallout of the recently held Maiden National Diaspora Merit Award in Abuja. Led by Honorable Abike Dabiri Erewa and the management staff of NIDCAM, the WTO DG said the diaspora is capable of doing so much for Nigeria, which goes beyond remittances such as skills and knowledge transfer, especially as most countries of the world are fast embracing the technology and digital era. On her recent recognition, Okonjo-Iweala expressed her pride as a citizen of Nigeria, adding that she was elated and humbled for being selected to receive such an award as a diaspora icon. The diaspora icon recipient commended the Commission for the work it has been doing over the years in terms of diaspora engagement under the pragmatic leadership of the NIDCAM boss, Abike Dabiri Erewa.
Nigeria has a very substantial and impactful diaspora. But up until you came along and systematized the approach to reaching out to the diaspora, we've not really felt the impact. So the work that NIDCAM is doing is wonderful. I want to commend you on doing that. I want to commend you on reaching out and being an example of how to run a place yourself, Honorable Abike Dabiri.
NIDCAM chairman stated that the award was presented to the DG for her selfless service to Nigeria and humanity at large. She added that she serves as an inspiration to all Nigerian women aiming at balancing family ties and career growth. Africa as a continent is blessed with abundant human and mineral resources that must be tapped for the benefit of Africans. This was part of submissions of participants at the ongoing African Bar Association conference in Pretoria, South Africa. Judiciary correspondent Dele Atumbi reports that the theme of the conference is building the legal profession in Africa under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
Of the African Union towards the establishment of African Continental Free Trade Area with the legal instrument guiding the attainment of the single liberalized market in place has been described as one of the best things that has happened on the continent of Africa. The discussion at the 2023 African Bar Association Conference are not only about law, the conference also taking a critical look at the huge benefits of this agreement to the 55 countries on the continent and the rest of the world. When the single market is on stream, participants are of the view that it will lower prices of goods and services as a result of increased competition and lower tariffs. The market for the African continent will equally bring in more exports and access to larger markets due to reduced trade barriers. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement is a pivot for economic growth and development, as it is capable of attracting increased foreign direct investment, innovation, and productivity. Continent's ability to get value for money also resonates at the conference.
The emergence of the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, in which trading began in January and more specifically in October 2022, represents a historic opportunity for Africa to strengthen immeasurably intra-African trade as a powerful avenue for developing Africa's vast economic and material potential. As the adage goes, there is strength in unity, and for all 54 member states of the African Union, our strength lies with our numbers. Cumulatively, we have a population of 1.3 billion people, the majority of whom are young people. And we are in possession of a collective GDP of some 3 trillion United States dollars, making us collectively the 8th largest economy in the world.
The ground norm of the agreement obviously is to bring African markets together so that we have a common place of freedom to trade between amongst ourselves, as opposed to going through third parties to trade amongst ourselves, which is what happens now. Right now you export to Euro refines it, brings it back to Africa, you send to your neighbor. The whole idea is that you can now do relationships between the African countries. So it suddenly transforms a, say, 200 million market of Nigeria into a global market of 1.something billion people. So that's huge. Market means money in this sector.
Participants believe strongly that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is a melting point for the transformation of Africa and the economic emancipation of the people. Africa as a continent would definitely benefit from the African Continental Free Trade Zone. All that the continent needs to do is to ensure that all countries within the continent come together to ensure that the goal is achieved. From Pretoria, Dele Atumbi, NTA News.
And we turn our attention back home. Nigeria has shown great leadership in Africa and has equally played a critical role in the UN climate policy negotiation since it became a party to the process in 1994. Vice President Kashim Shettima said this at a workshop on the outcome of the United Nations Framework Conversation on Climate Change. Adebola Brookslyn Sunday reports.
Perhaps the biggest challenge facing humanity today, developing countries like Nigeria, experts say, are gravely impacting despite its negligible contribution to overall global carbon emissions responsible for climate change. This workshop is to analyze the outcome of the 58th session of the subsidiary body of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Vice President Kashim Shettima said is to collectively present a common front by Nigeria in the Conference of Parties.
The plan for decarbonizing our energy systems highlights the key role that natural gas will play in transitioning our economy across sectors. The data and evidence show that Nigeria can continue to use gas until 2040 without detracting from the goals of the Paris Agreement.
These priorities are shared priorities for climate vulnerable countries around the world with a development and with a sustainable growth focus.
Nigeria has shown itself to be a leader on the African continent in limiting emissions of greenhouse gases.
In 2015, Nigeria joined the global community in adopting the Paris Agreement in keeping with the target of limiting the increase in global temperature within 1.5 degrees Celsius. Increase in drought, food scarcity occasioned by irregularities in rainfalls and overflooding are some manifestations of the impact of climate change in Nigeria.
So all hands must be on deck. And that's where Nigeria is. Nigeria has a law enabling legal framework, the Climate Change Act 2021.
Under the UNFCCC, Nigeria is advancing the adoption and acceptance of natural gas as a transition fuel.
just energy transition where emerging economies transits sustainably is a common front Africa is taking to the next conference of the parties. Adebola Brookslyn, NTA News.
We'll take a break now. We're back. Please don't go anywhere. Welcome back. In response to the infrastructure deficit and the challenges of development in sub-Saharan Africa, experts have been drawn from across the globe to identify these deficits, challenges posed, and proffer solutions that would help government on the continent with policy reforms. The African Continental Representative, World Council of Civil Engineers, Aishatu Umar, brought this to bear as the Council prepares to hold its first African Regional Summit in Abuja.
Given the area of experts, particularly in the field of civil engineering, as resource persons, and the response of engineers and built industry professionals. In terms of registration, the summit, there is no doubt that is headed by outstanding of engineers and built industry professionals. In terms of registration, the summit, there is no doubt that is headed
as part of activities to climax the International Girls in ICT Day in Ghana. The Ministry of Communications and Digitalization has organized 1 week of training for 100 girls from Bono East, Bono and Ahafo regions. The girls would be touring ICT facilities to interact with women working in the ICT field. The theme of this year's celebration is Girls in ICT, Digital Skills for Life.
The implementation of the Girls in ICT, a flagship program by the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization, is to promote the study of ICT and STEM through training in digital skills, coding, internet safety, and mentoring. In 2022, the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization organized an open day event for 80 girls who were selected from 4 regions in the country to benefit from the ICT sector. 100 girls who performed well in the assessment from Bono East and Ahafo regions were also selected to benefit from the ICT training. This year, a total of 200 teachers and 2,000 girls have been trained. The Deputy Minister for Communications and Digitalization, Madam Ama Boateng, said the initiative of the Girls in ICT Day forms part of International Telecommunications Union's effort to encourage countries to bridge the gender-digital divide.
As a continuity measure from the training of the girls, the government has made considerable investments in digital infrastructure, including the deployment of fiber optic cables, the expansion of 4G networks, and the implementation of the Rural Telephony Project.
Some of the beneficiaries spoke about the skills acquired from the ICT training.
In all my life, I have been dreaming to become an IT expert. So due to the end of this program, it will help me to achieve my goal.
Today, I can make my own game in Scratch projects.
It has helped me to develop interest in ICT.
The Deputy Minister commended MTN Ghana and American Tower Corporation for supporting the Girls in ICT initiative. Community information centers would be built to serve as continuous learning center for the girls after the 1 week training.
The Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, COREN, is encouraging the educational system in the country to be reviewed in such a way that standards and quality of students, especially in the engineering sector, will be at par with the minimal global standards. This was at the Committee of Deans of Engineering and Technology of Nigerian Universities, CODET, National Engineering Students Project Competition held in Abuja. Justin Bemboye reports.
This would be the 6th CODET National Engineering Students Project Competition in the series.
kg that we input.
The body has since instituted this competition among students to be able to identify talents and develop their capacities in identifying problems and finding solutions to such problems. The Committee of Deans of Engineering and Technology of Nigerian Universities coded body sees this as good attributes of engineers.
The idea is to showcase that engineering starts from the grassroots, and this, what you're going to see, are things that they have developed on their own, maybe with assistance from their departments, and these are working functional machines, functional devices, which could be developed.
So in this case, we are already preparing them, for that kind of, global outlook, and then, so that our future engineers will be competitive. Right from the student, when you give them that psyche, as a Nigerian, at student level, I have beaten a Chinese, I have beaten a Japanese, I have beaten an American with innovation. You have developed his psyche, you have developed his competence, and he has that confidence to be able to say, I can go and, I'm an engineer anywhere on the globe. And that is the kind of thing we are trying to promote, as engineering profession in this country and even beyond.
The exhibitions by the competing students will be showcased at annual engineering assemblies for investors and industrialists to identify innovative products for patenting and commercialization. Justin Bemunyi, NTA News.
To reduce the prevalence of malaria in Nigeria, key players in the health sector are advocating vaccination to accelerate efforts to bring to the barest the health burden before 2030. Elizabeth Omori reports that a survey by NTAi indicates that malaria is pervasive and vaccination will help rid the disease.
Malaria, pathologists say, is a life-threatening disease spread to humans by some mosquitoes. Mostly found in tropical countries, it is preventable and curable. Multiple reports show that children under 5 years, pregnant women, travelers, and people with HIV or AIDS are at higher risk of severe infection. These factors facilitated a survey to ascertain reasons malaria is still a major health concern within the African continent.
The vaccine was indicated for prevention of malaria in children aged 3 to 35 to 36 months. So it's against this backdrop that we conducted this poll to kind of understand perceptions, opinions, and what people think about malaria, its impact, and the ways we try to combat it.
The vaccines are to be continued and to be combined with existing tools to control malaria. Awareness of the availability of malaria vaccine needs to be intensified.
Because it's time to deliver zero malaria, they recommend cleaner environment, use of treated mosquito nets, and regular medical checks. Elizabeth Omori, NTA News.
The Coalition of Niger Delta Youth is begging the Nigerian Senate to confirm the nomination of Stella Oketete as the Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Addressing a press conference in Abuja, the coalition believes that the battle to deprive Stella Oketete of her appointment is politically motivated. Leaders of the group who listed the track records of the nominee said her experience with Nexam Bank will go a long way to add value to the economic recovery policies of the present administration.
We kindly appeal to the Senate to overlook the plots of some individuals who do not mean well for the Niger Delta region and equally do not wish this nation to be progressive.
She worked tirelessly. I and her and some of us here met in the village. She worked. You need to see her.
We need a person with that kind of capacity that will represent us as a youth, that we can assess, that will represent us properly. We know that so many charges are against her. We know it's strictly politically motivated.
The Senate have the final say in respect of the screening now. We are appealing to them. For the fact that we are having one of us in the Senate here who God have given the privilege of becoming the Senate president. him himself to reconsider the work this lady have done during the election.
All right, just before we go, let's find out Thursday's weather prospect. And we're done. Thank you very much for your time. I'm Ruth Aguele. My sign language interpreter is Taiwo Ozoma. Bye.